I just want to open it up to the room. I mean, that was rich enough. What do you guys have? What are the questions? Pick it apart, add to it. Let's dive in. Yes, Laura.
Question.
Yeah.
When you are looking to bring someone onto your team, how do you assess their alignment with what your organization stands for? Yeah. Without just being like, what are your values that you hold true to your heart?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And coming from one of our founders, who we invested in for all the reasons that I just talked about. So it's interesting. As I was preparing for this next listening tour with entrepreneurs and with the venture community, I had some training. I went and spoke to folks who work at the farm. I spoke to folks in different agencies that have 3 letters. I tried to understand, how do you have a casual, very candid conversation without anyone knowing that I'm actually measuring and quantifying and qualifying everything they're saying through the same 33 questions. And what I learned is the way you find out about someone's vision that they have for the world, the mission, the value sets that they hold dear, is you ask them everything about everything that doesn't have to do with those things. And there's deep questions that you and your team have to co-create. What gets at someone's ability to look into the future? What speaks to someone's kind of purpose and worthy cause at the level of the mission? These are things that I can't tell you what my questions were. They have to be co-created and they must be co-authored by the team because it's what matters to you all. If this is the vision you have as an organization, if this is the mission you hold dear to your heart, and if these are the values that we officially co-created, co-authored together, and you put those linearly across a board, and then you break these terms apart, there's questions that you can ask that get to the level of clarity that someone has truly about the vision they have for the world. It's the same for mission, it's the same for values. It's interesting how most of us, who find companies, work with entrepreneurs, invest in companies, we don't have our own definition of teams. We don't have our own definition of leadership. We don't have our own definition of culture. In an age where words start to mean different things, you have to take time with your people and define them so that everybody's on the same page. This is what, we just celebrated Martin Luther King Day not too long ago, right? And he was a huge inspiration in my life. And one of my favorite lines was when he said, I just want us to live up to what we said on paper. When he said that, we all know what he was referring to instantly. We knew what he meant, right? But when companies do not create this cultural constitution, and hell, we just went through this, you and I, right? When companies do not take the time to figure out the cultural constitution, we don't have anything to point to. We're not living up to what we said on paper because we didn't sit down and define it, talk about it, mess it up, get messy with it, talk about the definitions and the terms. You want to know why? And here's why. I didn't talk about the 6 words that I heard most often from founders when I would ask them about vision, mission, values. And by the way, I forgot to mention about to the 10th. There's a reason for that. When you say something as a founder, you could say it 100 times. And when you say it 100 times, they're just now hearing you because of the pace, the urgency, the dedication they have. So you have to say it again and again and again and again and again until somebody over at the water cooler on a Zoom, where I want to close out this meeting with letting you know that, the vision of Brum Ventures is, we imagine a world where, and someone finishes your sentence on the call. You got it. They got it. They hear it. They feel it. It's permeated the organization. And then they start to attach their own narratives, their own stories as to why they're here, because this is what we believe, and we're trying to live up to what we say on paper. Oh, and the 6 words that founders said when I did the interviews: I do not have the time. When I started talking about this over and over again, when are you going to work on this? Well, head down on product. We got shit to sell. I understand. Well, we're going to hire an HR No, did you ever notice that people hire gatekeepers to come into an organization when the organization doesn't know what they're gatekeeping? That has always blown, like I said, not that smart. I hope I have some common sense, but you hire someone, you bring them on board as a new person to figure all this stuff out so they can go out and create the documents and the artifacts and the things to attract the people to the place. And they're new. They just got on scene. Tenure in startups matters. It does. It's like a,
Tree line.
Exactly. It's like we've been here from the beginning, right? It's a big deal. I'm employee 5, I'm employee 2. Like there's great pride in that we're still here and alive. Like these are the reasons why so many people are attracted to starting up organizations. I didn't know this, but venture-backed startups are the number 2 employer in the world. I didn't know that. The number 1 employer in the world is the DoD. So I guess I didn't transition that greatly from one community to the other community, but it made sense because they're all so vision, mission, value focused, and they know what they believe. It's a cultural constitution, it's a compass. So again, we're having a call next week to do all this, right? What else? Come on, give me more. Council, yeah.
How would you articulate how this applies to the transition to founder to CEO? You took some time to speak with Mike and I last week. It was super helpful, and you mentioned that distinction. I never really thought about it before. But can you speak to how you kind of operationally define the difference between a founder and CEO and how this applies?
Sure. So the question is, how do we apply the equation to a founder who now must become a CEO? And that is a big transition. And you don't hear a lot about it. You hear a lot about like 0 to 1, right? Because it was coined by a very famous investor in person. But we don't hear often about being a founder, what it takes to be a founder, and then to become a CEO. Those are 2 very different roles. And we even call it, you ever notice that? It's never CEO founder. It's always founder, comma, CEO. Because they were this first, comma, and now we're trying to become this. Which is why I have a deep respect, why people in this audience have a deep respect. They've taken an incredible risk. So when you think of this, pardon the background noise, I tried to stop everything for this. So how do we apply the equation to support a founder in moving from founder to CEO using this? This process is one that it needs to happen all the time. Just like an evolution of growth happens all the time when you're a founder. If a founder looks at this and is reminded that he has not paid attention to this obsessively, I need to get back on board, this is the roots of where we come from. It's going to guide all their behavior, all the time. And I've seen it. The best founders do this. You look at Airbnb in 2008, and then you look at Airbnb in 2020, 21, when they went public. Brian, Nate, and Joe, the 3 founders, were saying and doing and being the exact same people and saying the exact same things in 2008 from when they were announcing their public offering. It's because they believe so deeply in the words. They made it a part of the constitution of the company. They based, sometimes at their detriment, they based their decision making or lack of decision making capabilities on making sure, is this according to our vision? Is this according to our mission? Is this according to our value set? And founders need to go deeper into the iceberg consistently, and then they'll notice that when it becomes time for a CEO, the biggest part of becoming a CEO is making sure that you surrounded yourself with the right people. And then all of a sudden, you're in this CEO role, and all of these wonderful people are around you. Now you're with talent. Now you're with executives. Now you've become and evolved into a CEO. And for the ones that I've spoken to about this and will speak to this year, they tell me how it happened. It's like it almost happened by accident. They all have said very similar things, how they found us. They came to us, and recruiting becomes a lot easier when you know what you believe. So hopefully that touches on the question. Who else? Yes?
What is to the 10th?
So the reason why it's to the 10th, and I'll even tell you how I got to that number, I paid attention to the 1 out of 10 interviews and went back and reviewed quite a few of my notes. And I've obviously stayed in touch with these companies over time. If you look at their websites, if you look at their artifacts, if you look at the notes that I took during our meeting, if you look at everything they publish externally to the company, they talk about their vision, mission, values hundreds of times in everything they do. Like, it's very different even for we're sitting inside of honor.org, the Honor Foundation. When you walk in, you see, when you walk on our website, you see our vision, you see our mission, and then you see our value sets. It's pretty compelling. It was what I had to do to go out there and talk about it because our vision was clear. We imagined a world where 65,000 special operators would experience a seamless transition. Why are we going towards that vision? Well, because we want to serve others with honor for life, so their next mission is clear and continues to impact the world. And we do that by practicing artistry every day. We do that by creating experiences. We do that with laser focus, and these are all the values of the organization. It's so crystal clear to me. When companies know what they believe, it goes right in that order, and then they say it again and again and again, because when you're the founder part, the prequel to the comma, it's all you can see. It's all you can say. You can't think, act, feel, and communicate differently. And there's an obsessive gene. There's a great story that talks about the obsession of this. Mike Moritz told this story. Mike Moritz is a very senior global director, investor at Sequoia Capital. He's been there for 30 years. And he talks about going to visit this young, bright entrepreneur named Bill Gates. And he shows up, and Bill picks him up at the airport, and the console of the car is destroyed. It's completely destroyed. And it was awkward destroyed, like Bill got robbed last night. Mike didn't know him well enough, so he didn't approach the subject, and they drive to Microsoft, they have a wonderful day, and then now, with enough rapport built, Bill's driving him back to the airport. And Mike, mustered the courage and said, Bill, I gotta ask you, what the hell happened to your dashboard? Well, Mike, it's a fair question. I found myself driving to and from Microsoft, and I was listening to the radio and music, and I thought to myself, well, when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking about Microsoft. That is a unique level of obsession, to where the dude ripped out his center console because he caught himself not thinking about Microsoft. But that is something that cannot be faked. It was very true, and Mike felt it, went back to Sequoia, said, we're in, done, check written, story is now in the history books, one of the largest technology companies in the world. These traits are measurable. And the alignment that these people have is laser focus. That's it. And you can trace everything back to this equation on how they thought, act, felt, and communicated throughout their entire life is according to this, and how they got to the culture that is now a world, just a global company.
Do you ever feel as though there are people in the founder seat who legitimately should be founders and they should not be what comes after the comma, and that it's better suited for somebody else to take that CEO role?
They have to fail a lot, in my opinion. And there's something very, very unique about the intuition and the historical intuition that comes along with being a founder. And then yes, there may be a time that is also self-selecting. A lot of founders will just step down.
Yeah.
Other founders, do get replaced against their will. It's part of the culture that of venture that seems to be taking a different tone, because the value of the founder has been proven. So I also saw Ben.
Well, this is a subject I've actually written about. I wrote a story in Mike Abbott, who was brought in to resurrect Klein Perkins when it fell apart, abandoned tech and only reclaimed tech and lost a stunning amount of money. And I wrote a story about the importance of founders. When I wrote for the founder of Paramount, I was having a drink with somebody, and they're like, what do you look for? And I'd say, people, a great idea, a huge market that works. That's my pithy saying.
What was that again? People,
a great idea, and a huge market that works. He said, people, you mean team? Yes, but realistically, I'm backing the founder. I'm backing the alpha, because they will build me a great team. So historically, I think you're right, it is changing. Historically, 40% of venture-backed founders did not survive as CEOs. There is a split. If you think of, and actually Mike Moritz falls on the wrong side of the split, in my opinion. The old school guys who you do not want to have on your board if you want an enjoyable life are of the mindset. Here's a quote from a very senior GP at a firm. When I funded you, you were competing with other founders. Today, you are competing with other CEOs. And his attitude is, as soon as I find a better CEO, you're out. Now, I've never fired a founder. I was forced to promote a founder once on somebody else's decision. I did not enjoy it. It was a tearful, painful moment. And he doesn't talk to me anymore. And it wasn't my flipping call, right? Like, I'm just a messenger. I'm here in New York being told you have to go upstairs. I still believe it was a mistake, by the way.
He still speaks very highly of you. I'm letting you know that.
Founders, I mean, think about the best companies in the world. The most valuable companies in the world. They're all founder-led. Microsoft,
Yes.
Google, Facebook. By the way, you want another random thing that I was told once in confidence, but you all won't say her name? Top recruiter in the Valley, she said, well, we already know we should solve for Asperger's. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. Like that, rip it out of the console, that's not just focus.
Yes.
There is a belief that Asperger's is the next level of humanity. I'm not going to go there. I'm probably only ADHD. I don't think I have Asperger's in me. But, you know, net, some level of obsessive focus. So
Yes.
when you're a founder, there's no guarantee you get to stick, which is why, number one, you need to be very careful about who you take money from. And number two, like I had a founder, again, I like specific stories. He came to me and said, hey, I got a term sheet from that firm you introduced me to. Great. Happens a lot. I'm proud of it. But they want to put a venture partner on the board. What does that mean? And I checked the venture partner. Oh, that means they're not sure you're going to make it. They're not sure you're the CEO. They're putting that person there so if you're not, he can take over. And he said, how should I think about that? I said, you basically shouldn't, except you should understand your job now is to hire people better than you. Because the minute you start, my favorite saying in venture, A's hire A's, B's hire C's. Who here has seen the movie The 300? You remember the Hunchback? Right? And he said, no, I cannot weaken my team. Right? A's do not let, and he wasn't a B, obviously he was an F, but you know, you don't let weakness on your team. So when you're a CEO and you're worried about getting fired, you better be hiring people who can replace you. Because then your founders and your funders around you are confident in your ability. If you're hiring weak, they will replace you. Right? Like you have to grow. Last point on this, I've helped a lot of people raise their rounds, and every time I do, and somebody wants to bid, I get a call over the weekend. Hey Ben, tell me about Bob. Tell me about Jane.
Yeah.
It's always the same question. All it means is Bob or Jane the long-term CEO? Are they going to make it all the way to IPO? And if they don't, are they going to go thermonuclear if I replace them and destroy the company?
Yep.
And the answer is always the same. I don't know. Miraculously, you don't have a crystal ball. But you know what? Bob and Jane are doing a great job. They're progressing. They're learning. I'm confident that they can probably get there. And I'm even more confident because this is their baby, like the only founder I've ever had to promote. Here's what he said, as much as it was painful for both of us. He said, this is what I have to do for the good of the company. This is what I will do. I'll do whatever it takes so we survive.
And I feel like that's exactly what the best founders will always say, because it's what they've built.
Sad.
Very sad, yes. What else?
Other questions, comments?
Derek. Oh, sorry. Derek and then Shiv, yes.
Yeah. Derek, go ahead.
Hey Joe, can you just elaborate on the differentiation between values, principles, and ethos?
Yes, of course. So what I heard over and over again, that values are, they're broad, of course, right? And they're verbs and they guide action broadly. When it comes to in the moment kind of DNA transfer from how founders and how founding teams make decisions, there's a universality to the things that they say and do that's very unique to them. Like the way Derek would do something in the moment to respond to a customer, you know, that's on the phone with Derek, that's kind of guided by values, right? You know that it's what we do. Like for instance, one of our values here at the foundation is create experiences. One of our values at the fund is seek truth, right? And you can't be afraid of what's true, right? That's the value and how we describe the value as a fund. But when it comes to principles, these things are very, very contextual and universal to the founder and the founding team. It's how you scale the founder's mentality around things that are universally true to that founder's work and life. Derek, you have an incredible individual personal story. You know, of course, there's things that come along with your personal story that also bleed into your professional journey. And there's things that you believe to be universally true in both work and life that you implement at home and that you implement at work, and you're the same person in both places, right? That's a great definition of a true leader, is they're the same everywhere. They're consistent and they're steady in the way they talk, think, act, and feel. I'm not expecting a different Derek when I walk into Derek's home as I would if I walked into your business. I'm going to see the exact same person. And like I said, using my father as an example of leave things better than when you found it. And then there's a story that goes underneath that. I would have that as a part of my cultural constitution, so that when people come into this organization, here's the vision, the world we hope to create alongside others. Here's the mission, why we get out of bed every single day. Here are the values, the moral compass of the organization and what guides us. But you also know that when you go a compass on any compass rose, there are all these little individual hashes, right? Those are principles, right? They're universally true in both work and life, and they are always there as a result of the founding team. And when you come on board and you understand that alignment, and by the way, this order is very important too. You can't have a mission without a vision. You can't have values unless you have a vision, mission. Now you can create some values because there are teams, there's people, right? Principles can only be created after vision, mission, values have been created and been put into action by the founding team for quite some time. It surfaces the principles. And then you can't know about you or the ethos or about us until vision, mission, values, and principles have been acting for a while. Now you start to know about us a little bit. Now you can create that page and talk about the ethos of the company. So that's how I differentiate the difference from principles versus broad values. Yes. Oh, Shiv and yes.
We've had the pleasure to work with you and like go deep, and I see how deep you go. So I'm curious, when you were coming up with, TLC, there's probably a list of 50 things that you were considering that you picked up from these, companies that you were interviewing. What were some of the other runners up, and why didn't they make the list?
So the founding team is very important to this whole equation. And if the founding team is, let's say, a solo founder, I asked the founder a very simple question: who are the critical stakeholders of your organization? And I defined it for him, meaning the business would go away if they went away. And then they write out a list of names instantly, like this person, this advisor, this advisor, this advisor, this person. And like it would go away, meaning not necessarily go away, but they'd have a really hard time. And if I can get through that entire circuit and everyone is saying the same thing and believing the same thing and attaching stories the same way, it's aligned. If it's not, it's not. And it's not like it's a bad thing. You work on that and you help them guide that. And the best founders are the ones that understand how important this is and want to work at it obsessively. And when I ask the final question of both entrepreneurs and VCs, is there a fund in Silicon Valley that only focuses on TLC as a thesis, meaning we literally vet out founders in this fashion? And if there are red flags according to this rubric, we give a very honest response to both co-investors who may have passed us the opportunity, that this person is giving some red flags around character, around integrity, around their team ability, around their whole person attitude as a leader, and you just need to know this, and this is why we're passing. There's more to analyze than just tech all the time.
Right.
You, and then, what did you say? We have two more?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, when Derek asked this question, you were touching on that response. It kind of has me wondering what the difference is between ethos and culture.
Yeah, that's a great question.
They seem very similar when you were...
Sure. So I have a great challenge for everyone here. When you think about everything I talked about in that order, vision, mission, values, principles, and you end with this about us, right? When you think about ethos, I challenge everyone to go look up something called the Navy SEAL ethos. All right, it's an example that I think is very interesting, because here's what it does: one of two things. You read that and you say to yourself, that's for me. I want that. I want to be around people who believe that. Or you read that and you say, nope. Hard pass. Not for me. God bless all of them for whoever believes. Yes, more of it. But it's not for me. The ethos helps cultivate the culture because it attracts and detracts and deflects, I should say. It deflects on behalf of the organization so that you can start to form the teams, sharpen leadership that equals culture. And culture, as we all know, there's a great definition. It's just the way things are done around here. And the ethos is the thing that helps shape that, attracts and deflects. to get us to culture. And then we got to repeat the whole thing again and again and again. Because the thing about culture, whether you're paying attention to it or if you're not, it's being created.
So it seems like it's sort of maybe apropos to say the ethos is like the magnet with both the positive and
Negative charge. That's way better than what I said.
with the culture being
That's right.
the case that the magnet's inside of.
That's right. Say that again. Maybe we want to get that on.
Yeah.
Maybe we want to get that on recording. So
Ethos is the positive, negative magnet. Yada yada. Get that man the microphone.
correct. Exactly. Yada yada. He said it way better than all of us.
Ethos is the magnet with both a positive and negative pole to it, and the culture is the casing that the magnet lives inside of. Yeah.
I mean, that's damn good.
Nice.
That's why Chip hired me.
That's right. Oh, of course. Because you were trying. That's perfect. Yes.
You still got Brian?
Yeah, Joe, you said the equation gets better over time with more inputs. And with the equation, diving very acutely for companies like Gap. So for you, when you're applying this and as you expand this, how do you see it evolving with drive investment decisions or going and look at companies you've invested into to identify gaps and where this can go?
There's two ways that come to mind. I have no idea if these are accurate yet, but instinctively I immediately jump to two things. One is trust will increase as a currency among my partners. So, and that's one way to measure it. It's like how many new people want us to be in with them. How do founders approach us because they heard what we believe and they're attracted to it. How many similar co-investors like Ben, start to understand that this is valuable and we need to talk more about this stuff earlier because it does make a difference. And then the second thing is, in fact, the actual quantifiables. Like how well are our companies doing who are clear by this? So I do think that it's both of those things. Trust as a currency will increase, and then actual currency will also increase in value. And I'm already seeing that with our first fund. It's becoming very clear on paper that founders that believe in this win. And that's the vision of our fund in the first place. We imagine a world where founders who are mission-oriented win. That's who we want to back.
I want to thank Joe for this, and I want to thank Joe for this, for being the magnet that has drawn all of us in here for this conversation today. So onwards, and thank you, Joe.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Shed. Thanks, man.